What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of MUT Tips. I'm your host, Sean Taylor from the Made Up Theater. And before we jump in, make sure to like the video down below, leave a comment, and as always, subscribe on YouTube to be informed of upcoming videos and live streams. Ring that bell. Now let's jump into today's topic. You have high status. Status is one of my favorite concepts in improv, and you can learn all about it in episode 54 of MUT Tips. Check it out after this video. Today's video, though, is going to focus more so on your status as a performer on the stage. The second you step foot on that stage in front of a live audience, you have high status. It's very important to acknowledge that because when I first got started with improv, I had very low confidence in my ability to improvise because my entire childhood growing up, I always had very low self-esteem. And then learning improv, I had to, rewire my head to allow myself to be in that state of high status when in front of an audience or even when in front of my students when I'm teaching improv. Remember, anytime you are performing or teaching or just doing anything in terms of presentation, you have high status because the people there came to see you. When I recognized the fact that the audience came to see myself and my ensemble performance shows, then that instantly made me embrace things more, embrace the mistakes because I'm in a high status position, therefore the mistakes can now be treated as gifts rather than detriments to the show. I think I realized the benefit of viewing yourself as a high status entity on stage when I hosted my first show way back in 2006. And I didn't do it perfectly, but I was in that just mode of authority when it comes to interacting with the audience. The audience oftentimes had that focal point on me by myself, and I was like, wow, this actually feels good. I feel a sense of confidence because there's an element of me driving the show forward with my hosting. And I thought, hey, I gotta take this to my scenes, to my characters. Because, even if you're performing in a low status character, just like a lowly employee at Target or something in an improvised scene, you're just like, oh, you feel so low on yourself. You are still commanding the stage with your character. You are commanding as a high status performer, even though you might be within a low status character. A way to practice combining status of characters and scenes with your status as performers on stage, which again is high, is to do a group scene with 5 or 6 people. But the scenario that you're gonna give those 6 people or so is going to be characters who are high status, Think about it as the Knights of the Round Table or a band of superheroes or Greek gods. In these high status groups, there are still hierarchies of low and high status. But when it comes to society, the people out there, they are still high status. The lowest status Greek god is still incredibly high status when it comes to interacting with just an everyday person. You can assign status however you want. I personally like to get a deck of cards, shuffle them up, hand one card to each person. They alone will look at the card, put it in their pocket, and then play to that status. So 2 would be low, ace would be high. I got a 6, so I will play kind of mid-tier. So that's how you could assign status, and now you play to these statuses in the scene. Now in the scene, remember the improvisers are improvising as high status characters, a group of high status characters. So for example, maybe you give them the suggestion of Greek gods, and they perform as their status as these Greek gods. Now an important thing to note though, is that even though you might have a 2, for example, when it comes to everyday people out there, you are still high status. You're a Greek god. But in this group of people, these characters, you're, a 2, a lower status of the Greek gods. But you still have that authority, You still do have that sense of authority when it comes to dealing with everyday people outside of this group of Greek gods. So you still do have that, ability to contribute. A lot of low status characters, when I play these status games and I just give them an everyday situation, they are less likely to take focus. They are less likely to talk. And a lot of times it just becomes the high status characters talking a lot, getting that focus on them, right? And that's not how status is generally played. You can have an ace god on stage who just has confidence with their body language but says barely anything. And you can have a level 2 Greek god who maybe is nervous and speaks a lot, but they still command the nervousness on stage. They, as a character, have that high status authority as an improviser performing on stage to a group of people. So remember, even if you play as a low status character, like a wallflower during prom who's afraid to go talk to anybody or ask anybody to dance with you, right? we can relate to that character as an audience because audience members more often than not can relate to low status characters because we've been there. We've been in those moments when we are afraid to speak up or talk to somebody or communicate with somebody, right? And even though you can play those characters on stage, you are still a high status improviser playing a low status character. Even if you're a collapsed, timid person, you are still commanding the stage as a high status performer with all of your other high status ensemble members. So bring that high status improviser mentality to all of your characters, even if they are low status. And that concludes this episode of MUT Tips, everybody. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really appreciate it. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you next time for another episode of MUT Tips. Bye.